Okay, it is 6:13 and we are calling this meeting to order. Well, actually, wait, we're going to do a roll call first and then maybe we'll call to order if we have quorum. I call to order first? Oh, great. All right. Let's see. Okay. Am I recording? Yes. Yes. Great. Good. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Amy Pennington for the record. This is the Ward 5 Neighborhood Advisory Board meeting on April 12th. Thank you for your patience this evening with our technical difficulties. We are going to begin with our roll call. So Frederick Bear, present. Carly Borchardt, present. Present. Gary Cecil,
Present.
present. Bryce Chisholm, not present at this time. Carol Crane,
On mute. She's there.
she needs to unmute. Carol, are you with us?
Hold on a minute.
Okay, we'll come back to Carol. George Foster, not present at this time.
Are you there?
Alex Goff,
Are you there?
present. Annika Khan, not present.
I'm here. Carol Crane.
Okay.
Great, Carol Crane is here.
Diane.
Theodore Meek, not present. Mac Rossi.
Delighted to be here.
All right, we have a quorum and this Neighborhood Advisory Board meeting is called to order. Fabulous. Great. Carly, take it away.
So the first item, A2, is public comment. This item is for either public comment on any action item or for general public comment, and is limited to no more than 3 minutes for each commenter. Do we have any public comment?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great.
Jenny Breckus.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, NAB members. My name is Jenny Breckus. I'm the Ward 1 Reno City Council member, but I am here in my private capacity today as a candidate for mayor, introducing myself to you and sharing a little bit about my vision to be Reno's next mayor. I'm a city planner by training. I've been on the Reno City Council since 2012, and I bring a vision to knit together all the complex issues our growing city is facing moving forward. And I look forward to being out on the campaign trail and sharing my vision for Reno, but also coming to the neighborhood advisory boards and listen to the issues that are in front of you all. As a Reno City Council member, I have used the Ward 1 NAB as my central forum and focus for the constituent work that I do, along with the good work that I do with my liaison. Very important to me. And as your next mayor, I will be attending a NAB meeting every quarter, and I will be offering each ward representative the opportunity to have a meeting with me monthly so I can hear what they're hearing from their neighborhoods and the constituent work that they're doing. Because I know that we, from as equals of the political body, all see it similarly, and it's very important for us to be collectively talking about what we're hearing and seeing from the constituents in their neighborhoods, because that's where everyone's heart is in their home. It's also where the majority of their personal financial investments are, and we need a mayor who's going to be neighborhood focused. You can go to HillarySheevyFacts.com and see what we've had as a mayor who has special interest focus. I think today, as a matter of fact, you're going to have a development project that she will likely read a disclosure that she has a personal relationship with someone who's been hired as the lobbyist by that candidate. I might be mistaking because it's a phased approach, but on HillarySheevyFacts.com, you can see a video of a representation of the disclosures she's read and that seat for the last 4 years. And when she does, neighborhoods lose. JennyBreckus.com, reach out to me at any time. It's going to be a long march to November, but I'm looking forward to sharing my vision for Reno and how to be our residents' mayor. Thank you. Get my glass.
And then I had another public comment, but you prefer to go at the end? Okay, okay. And then is there anyone online who would like to make public comment? You can raise your hand if you would like to. All right. I don't see any other public comment at this time.
Public comment, Mac Rossi for the record. Just to let you know, while we have a crowd control here, that their RTC is having a survey on the McCarran Loop, the whole loop. If you got any input that you would like to do it, it's online now, and you just go to RTC and ask for the survey and give your input on anything pertaining to the McCarran Loop, which, if you don't know, the McCarran Loop is under the jurisdiction of NDOT. So the city is working with them on whatever changes they might take in place. So thank you.
Great. I
Thank you, Mac.
believe that concludes our public comment.
Okay, great. So we will move on to approval of the agenda. However, it does appear, since we're running a little bit late, that we do have a request to move item B2 up the Reno Police Department quarterly report so that we can get him out of here. Is that
I think we need to
not in a
approve-
bad way?
I think we need to approve the agenda first, and then you can take an item out of order.
Okay, okay. So I would need some approval.
Alex Goff, for the record, I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Alex.
Yuri Sesso for the record. I second that.
Great. All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that item passes. And we'll just move through until we get to B, or how do we can go ahead and do B2 now, if you don't mind, so that we can be respectful of your time. Yes.
Matthew Peterson, Reno Police Department. I'm a lieutenant for the Community Services Division. You get it? Hello? There you go. Sorry. Matthew Peterson, I'm a lieutenant for the Reno Police Department, Community Services Division. Side note, Lieutenant Waiturbity will no longer be attending the Ward 5 meeting. It's been determined with using the on-duty lieutenant for the different NABs when the NABs are held. So I will be, for the foreseeable future, the lieutenant that comes to address the concerns. First, I wanted to start off with, I had some questions that were passed on to me by Lieutenant Waiturbity from the ward concerning an investigation for a murder that occurred in the behind the Fox Bistro downtown, a one-up club on Commercial Row. Inquiring about if that had ended in arrest. In that specific investigation, LaDon Lee is in custody. The information developed during the investigation resulted in him being located by U.S. Marshals Task Force in Salt Lake City. Taken into custody. He is a suspect in investigation in similar events in California. Coordination with California law enforcement brought that to light, and I identified him as well. And an accomplice has been identified, but that information is confidential due to the ongoing investigation. That subject is still outstanding for that purpose. On a lighter note, or not a lighter note, but a positive note, RPD hired forensic investigation team. They're back, it was October that they started processing for that team. As a result, it's so that we don't have to utilize Washoe County facilities and team for the purposes of that. And as a result, we have more control over which scenes they're actually going to respond to and investigate. Because of that, that was one of the first scenes they actually processed, and they were able to recover both DNA and fingerprints. I can't release how, but in an exceptional manner that probably would not have occurred otherwise. And as a result, it will be significant to that investigation. Let's see. The second one was to confirm if it was a drug deal gone bad and any thoughts about that. I cannot disclose the nature of that event due to the ongoing investigation. Again, I believe his prelim is actually there tomorrow, so more information will be made public through the natural course of the courts. Next question was for the downtown bar car said it stopped on December 31st, as the winter months are not too much of a problem. Are there any plans to start it back up now that the better weather is here? The bar card did continue past the December 31st date. I could not get an answer from who was in charge of it before to determine how far, but I do know it did go past. And then it is dependent on staffing. Once again, everything's dependent on staffing with the department. Offering the bar car as overtime to officers that are not on duty, depending on if they're willing to work that. No major incidents documented specifically related to the bar car. And then a few months ago, you were kind enough to try to get detailed data on RPD dispatches downtown. You mentioned RPD database was undergoing an upgrade that should be finished by the end of March. Did that upgrade happen? And can I please resubmit the request? In that question, a couple of different pieces. First of all, the recording for what I'm able to bring to the meetings and advise on is for the entire ward. So I have Ward 5 stats that I brought with me for the month of March, and I also have February's available. But it doesn't specifically narrow it down to the downtown core district. If I need to get something specific, I can, but it's a much bigger bucket to look into initially. The database, as far as the upgrade of the database, I'm not sure of the status of that one, simply because we've lost the analyst that was doing all of the stats for us. She's resigned her position and moved on to a different agency. So that is open city website, and they're actively recruiting for that. So that's what I can tell you about those questions specific that were posed.
Chair, may I just follow up with a few clarifications, questions? Gary Cecil for the record. First of all, I happened to look down on all of that forensic work in December, and I was amazed. I mean, I really do. I could see the intensity of it. And you're saying, if I understand it correctly, that that's now available citywide when there's something happen like this, where there's something that needs to be forensically analyzed. Is that right?
Well, so that I can be clear about it, we've always had forensic investigation services available since their inception through the Washington County Sheriff's Office. It was contracted because it was their facility and their team. They determined what they would respond to based on mutual agreement.
I see.
Obviously, more significant events caused their response versus some of the stuff that they deemed lower, not because it wasn't important, simply because they don't have the staffing and numbers to do that type of thing. It was through the mutual agreement. Now, with our own team in-house in RPD, the command staff and the on-duty watch commander has the discretion to be able to advise, yes, we're going to have them respond for this type of event or that type of event. What it boils down to is it gives us a tighter grasp of when we're going to decide who can come out and for what purpose. It doesn't mean they're going to come out for everything just like they didn't before. It's just that now we have more say in it as far as their response and getting those evidence.
Well, that's great. I'm very glad to hear that. It's really good.
And we have I'm sorry, I don't know her title, but the criminalist that was put in charge, she has years of experience and is obviously very knowledgeable, as you were able to witness. So,
yeah, that's great. In terms of the bar car, am I correct that it was funded last year by a grant, not from within the operating fund?
from my memory, because I operated as a sergeant some years ago, it was a grant, I believe, but
So if it were to start up again around the same time it did last year, because it was very successful, the downtown residents loved to see it out there for the weekend. Would that mean that sometime soon somebody would actually have to apply for that grant?
if it was grant funded, depending on what the status of the grant is, I know I can follow that up with you.
I would really appreciate that
Yeah.
because it was a tremendous, I think the program worked very well for downtown. And it was very comforting, I think, to a lot of people that look down, hundreds of people that look down on areas where we've historically had crime problems. And
Sure.
to see that car there was really very,
Yeah, no,
very
I understand.
comforting. So I would appreciate that. That would be great.
From a
On the-
patrol, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
From a patrol standpoint, trying to manage calls for service, it's wonderful to be able to send a dedicated unit to the problems that are concerning to you as a citizen and they're concerning to me, but the problem is I got to focus on, should I send the guys to this crime, this significant crime in progress, or this?
Understand.
Of course, that one gets put on the back burner. When I have the dedicated car to it, it makes it much easier. They don't, they're self-driven. They know what to go to.
Well, if you do that grant and you want somebody to write something in favor of it, we'll get a whole bunch of people
All right.
to sign up for that. So just know there's support there.
Sure.
On the database, I'm getting just, I keep on asking if I can get with an analyst, but I guess you don't have the analyst now. Because with the background I have, I think I can define pretty tightly if I understood what the fields were. And that data is so critical to know what's going on. Right now, there's a license up for the Fusion Bar, which is right downtown. And it was continued by the council because they wanted more comparative data. I don't know how on earth they can get that unless, they know how to write a query. Otherwise, it's all done manually. So I'm looking if I can help again, I'll take the time to do it. But if there's any way anybody could connect me with somebody in your department that without seeing data I can't see, but just to see the structure of the database, I would really appreciate that because I would really love to see that comparative data.
Okay. So with one of the, like, for instance, the stuff that she did send out before she left, I actually have to go through and review it because there's so many things that she had to do. She couldn't get down to the nuts and bolts, like specifically the ward past, these are the crimes in that ward. So it would be like up to someone like me to go through individually to determine it. I'm by no means an analyst and I don't pretend to be so. I'm sure she had a better system than I would, but she did not have that capacity. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, thank you. And again, thanks for all RPD does. We do
No,
appreciate it very
thank you.
much. Thank you.
I had a second thing I would like to go over. So recently, a large, significant number of violence was occurring between two specific gangs. The regional gang unit recognized and addressed that. As a result, they determined a suppression was in order. They conducted that for about 6 days, and that culminated on the 4th of this month. In doing so, they utilized resources from different agencies in the county for the purposes of the citizens of Reno through those agreements, resulting in 18 arrests, 16 of those being felonies. Gang FIs where they detailed the information of 26. Parental contacts, trying to keep children that are not completely joined into the gang process and hoping to divert those children. Parental contacts of 7 with response to that. Specifically, the biggest wins during the suppression were locating members of a certain gang that were involved with 2 major shooting cases. I know it's out of the ward, but specific to the Smith Ridge Park Apartments. And then again with the Wilkinson Park shooting where 1 victim was left paralyzed. So quite a bit of traction as far as gang-related violence for the city. And any of that is going to bleed over into all parts of the city and other neighboring jurisdictions. So really good work by those guys. I have a long history with the gang unit. So I think that was phenomenal results for them.
Great.
So did anybody have any questions for me?
Mac Rossi for the record, so we don't take up a lot of time tonight. And you may not be able to answer this, but it's been quite a while since we've asked it. How's the backlog on rape kits? Or is there any?
That's, you've stopped me there. I'd have to
Is it
check
possible
into
to
it.
get a report on that maybe at the next meeting?
Right. I know that there was a state law that was enacted for it, and as such, they had to get through a certain time period. So I think that is, but that's out of my wheelhouse.
If you'd let us know, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great question. Any other questions?
Chair, just one quick one.
Okay.
On the map here on Ward 5, am I correct that this is downtown here in the kind of bottom right?
That's actually a really good comment. I was kind of hoping that maybe we could get like a street indicator just to have some type of idea of what we're looking at. Maybe that's Virginia Street there on the left. I'm not entirely sure.
So being new to the NAB process, I actually had to do the same thing as yourself, because the first thing I looked at is, okay, is this the city of Reno? Is this planet Earth?
Right.
I don't have the correlation, so I looked it up. On the city website, there is It actually lists the streets. Of course, we'll request that when I do have a new analyst, but obviously I had this at a later time after she had already left. But yes, that little core in the bottom right corner, this is not the one I'm looking at. Which one did you have, sir?
Number
Display.
5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fine.
So in that bottom right with all the colors posted, that's basically the downtown core right there. That's going to be down to the river on the south end and then up to through 6th Street, somewhere in there. But then it goes all the way out to Somerset
Right.
and Verdi
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that occurred to me as I looked at it is that in order to be able to pinpoint where those variety of crimes happened,
Mhm.
a database has given somebody locations, and that was one of the most important things I wanted.
right.
So it's definitely there and it's being pulled in some
Mhm.
way. It's just, I would want an even higher level of detail than that, down to like street locations, which I could get from that.
Sure.
But anyway, it's definitely concentrated, isn't it?
Right, without a doubt. And that's how this are determined to make it so big.
Yeah.
I have those, but I have to check on what I can release as far as that. I can comment in generality, but I don't know that I can release specifics of that. I have to check on that.
Okay, again, thank you.
Yes,
Appreciate
sir.
it.
Any other questions, or shall we let this guy get back to work?
Thanks.
Thank you very much for being here, and
Thank you.
thank you for the updates. Really appreciate you. All right, and we'll jump back up then to A4, which is approval of minutes. Was everybody able to review them? Were there any questions or concerns?
Madam Chair, I just had one quick comment. I had questioned the November agenda. Thank you very much, whoever was it you doing it, Amy, that went through and validated it, and I'm very satisfied with what's there. So if everybody else is okay, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for those for November 9th, 2021, January 11th, 2022, and February 8th, 2022.
Mac Rossi for a second.
We've got a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That passes. Next item is A5, Council Liaison Report for general announcements and informational items only.
I do have a comment on that. So Councilmember or Vice Mayor Jordan isn't able to be here with us tonight, but she did receive some questions from some various people. And so she's going to be providing some written responses to some
Okay.
questions, but is not able to join us tonight.
Gotcha. Okay. A6 is the Staff Liaison Report, items for general announcement and information only.
Right, that's me, Amy Pennington for the record. I have one thing that I just wanted to share. I will send this out to the board. It was, where did it go? Never mind, I don't have that update. I don't have any specific updates for the board.
Okay. Okay, so then the next item will be business item B1, which is the election of the chair and vice chair. Are you wanting to take this, or are we just throwing it out there, or how are we going to exactly?
Oh, like, do you want me to facilitate the discussion on this?
Yes,
Sure.
please.
Yes, yes.
Thank
okay.
you.
Yes, for Amy Pennington for the record, I will facilitate, let's see, item B1, election of chair and vice chair. Is there any discussion? I guess, I don't know, like, or talk, I don't know. Yes, are there any nominations?
Did we want to, Alex Scott for the record, did we want to nominate a chair, or vice chair? Or in the past, we had a rotating chair and vice chair. Would we be interested in going back to that system potentially to allow others chair and vice chair of the meetings?
Mac Rossi for the record. I have gone through many years of this. I'm terming out in December, but I really like the idea of the rotating. It gave everybody an opportunity just to get their feet wet, and it worked out really well. We just, at the end of the meeting, we assign an alphabetical order to go down, and you don't have to accept it. You can pass and let it go on to the next person. So that's my suggestion, to keep that, my personal suggestion, to go ahead with that.
I honestly don't have a preference either way. I am happy to chair. I am happy to vice chair. I am happy to sit aside because you all know I put in my 2 cents one way or another.
I am still learning the ropes and I have sometimes don't always follow the guardrails, right, Amy? So I'm not ready, I think, to do that, but I would sometime in the future. I'm prepared to look a little bit longer before I take that on, but I'm fine with rotation too. Thank you.
I agree with Gary, rotation. Oh, Frederick Mayor.
So Alex Scott, for the record, what I've heard the majority say is that we're interested in a rotation. So I would like to offer a motion that in election, we have a rotating chair based on alphabetical order of members.
Motion. Second.
I just wanted to give Carol Crane an opportunity to speak if she would like.
Carol Crane, yes, I think the rotation motion is a good one.
Mac Rossi, for the record, just so you're aware, whoever takes the chair, she has the guidelines to work that. You just don't come in cold. They give you a breakdown, and she's been very kind to set it all up for us. So we're not alone on it.
And this is Amy Pennington for the record. I do also just want to state, I've been in some of the hybrid meetings where someone has attempted to chair the meeting remotely, and it's very, very difficult. So I would also perhaps recommend having whoever it is chairing the meeting be in person, or if they're not in person, maybe going to the next person is a
So-
recommendation.
Alex Scott, for the record, I move that instead of having an election for chair and vice chair, we have a rotating chair and vice chair based on alphabetical rotation of members who are present in person where the meeting is being held.
Carol Crane, I
Second.
second that.
Great. So I have a first and a second by Carol Crane. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. All right, moving on to item B3, which is an update on preliminary allocation of coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds for the city of Reno. Presentation by City Manager's Office, discussion item only.
That's going to be me.
That could be
One second.
remote.
I'm just getting screen up here for y'all to see.
They even come up to the podium.
Wanted to deprive you of a presentation. Hello, Amy Pennington for the record, here on behalf of the City Manager's Office, and just giving a really brief overview of some of the decisions that Council approved in the approval of the state and local fiscal relief fund that was received by the City of Reno. So, as some people may know, we were allotted a little bit over $50 million from the federal government, and the first half of that allocation has come to the city. And so this this breakdown that was approved by council is for that first half of the funding. And so, as you can see, over half of it, 53%, has gone to affordable housing. There are some other priorities that were also included, including parks and recreation, access to healthcare, public safety, senior support, and community programs. And then 3% went to pandemic response. And so some of the pandemic response actually had to do with the response and system. So putting things into hybrid settings, IT, some of our response with vaccination outreach and stuff like that. So that's kind of what some of that pandemic response is. I just wanted to highlight a few of the affordable housing pieces because it's been of obviously high importance to the community and of great interest. So of of the ARPA money, or the state and local fiscal relief fund money, $13 million have been allocated to projects. And so as you can see, 2.5 million have gone to expand the Sage Street. And that's a modular dormitory style of units. And then 2 million have gone to purchase and renovate the Highway 40 motel. And that's to preserve those units. And it creates pathways for the homeless, from the homeless shelter to independent living. And then 9 million has been used for, in partnership with the Reno Housing Authority, for the Dick Scott Manor and the Bonanza Inn. And that represents another 70 permanent housing units for the city of Reno. So while I may not have a lot of answers for in-depth questions, I'm happy to provide any insight or answers that I can.
Gary Cecil for the record, just a few quick ones, Amy.
Sure.
The targeted residents for the Bonanza Inn, is it houseless or workforce?
I don't know exactly who will be going in there, but I believe I don't believe it's considered workforce housing.
Okay, so it would be people from like the CARES campus, a place for them to be transitioned.
I can't speak to exactly where people would come from to be housed there, but I do, it's part of the affordable housing, not necessarily workforce housing.
Okay. You probably don't know the answer to this, but the Sundowner, there was talk at one time about purchasing that. Is that not on the table anymore?
My understanding is that would be a question for the Reno Housing Authority. So the Bonanza Inn, for example, and the Dick Scott Manor, those are projects that the Reno Housing Authority has taken on, and part of this, they've asked for funding from multiple entities, including the city of Reno. So we've put funding toward that.
Okay.
If there are going to be additional buildings purchased, that would be more in their arena.
Okay. Finally, time frame.
I don't have a specific time frame, but that would be, again, a Reno Housing Authority question. They're the ones managing that project.
Okay, thank you very much.
So just to dumb it down for me here real quick, sorry.
Sure.
This was voted on then, this was presented, you guys had multiple presentations to council, and council kind of narrowed down what they felt the money should be used for, or how exactly was this determined to be divvied up?
Yes, there were conversations with council members, understanding their priorities and where they wanted to see money being attributed during the pandemic. And then there was basically a proposal put forth to council. And during that time, during that council meeting, there were some adjustments made by council, and then it was voted on and approved.
Okay, gotcha. Any other questions? Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, B4, development projects. So the following presentations by the project's developer or representative, NAB members and the public will have the opportunity to ask questions about the project and provide feedback. The NAB will not take any action on the development projects. NAB members and the public are encouraged to complete the development project review form with their input. All development project review forms submitted to the community liaison at the NAB meeting or via online form will be submitted to the Reno Planning Commission for consideration in the development review process. City of Reno planning staff will be available for questions, but will not provide project presentations. And the first project that we have before us is LDC 21-00038, Meridian 120 South Conditions Amendment.
Hello, Madam Chair. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Committee members, for the record, Garrett Gordon, today on behalf of BT South, presenting on the Meridian 120 South, modifying a few conditions of approval. No, is that the screen? Can everyone see that with the, okay. So this, you can't see some of the writing on top, but oh, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Amy. So this project was actually approved back in June of 2010. This is Meridian 120 residential project, you can see there were 6 villages approved. Sorry, there's this little pop-up there. 6 villages approved. The location is south of I-80, across I-80 from Boomtown. You can see there, top left-hand area of the graphic, Boomtown. You come over Boomtown Garrison Road and come into this community. 6 villages were approved, so it has been master planned, it has been zoned, and there is a tentative map on the property. And you can see here how those units were carved up for purposes of housing. Villages 1 and 2 were approved for 75 units, villages 3 and 4 for 285 units, and villages 5 and 6 were approved on the tentative map for 261 units. I'm before you tonight talking about villages 3 and 4. That area you can see on this map is a little darker. It's currently zoned arterial commercial. And part of this tentative map was, you can see in villages 1 and 2 and 5 and 6 are kind of larger single family homes. But part of the compromise or part of the mixed residential element that went through staff and city council was in the arterial commercial area there adjacent to I-80 were townhomes approved. So kind of the attached townhomes that we need, the missing middle, certainly our housing shortage, we need that kind of product. So there was that product, the townhomes attached product that would be put in arterial commercial 3 and 4. Stuck for a sec. There we go. So when this tentative map was approved, of course, like any tentative map, there's conditions of approval, and those conditions of approval have to be satisfied in order to go record a final map, which eventually you can go pull a building permit. Under state law, you have 4 years to meet all these conditions of approval to go pull a final map. So you can see this was approved in 2022. We're halfway there. So we're working through these conditions of approval. 2 of them are no longer feasible. So that's the request to Planning Commission and City Council, and to get your input on, is amending 2 conditions, number 4 and number 31. Number 4, as written, says, prior to recording a final map for these villages, the applicant shall provide documentation that either an amendment to the Mortensen Garrison Overlay District standards have been approved to increase the number of units allowed within Planning Area 3, or a mutually agreed upon relocation of units is in place to accommodate the number of units proposed with the first final map. So in other words, in order to move forward with those townhomes, we would need to do one of 2 things. Move forward with a text amendment. And why? What was going to be put in that text amendment, right? Under the MGOD, it says there's a cap on residential units. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this in the MGOD for residentially zoned areas. For commercially zoned areas, arterial commercial, it says you revert back to the development code of what density can be built there. So virtually unlimited. There's also no design standards in MGOD for what residential should look like in commercial zoning. So the text amendment process was initiated by Councilwoman Jordan. I know you're Madam Chair here. I attended many stakeholder meetings with her to work on that text amendment. And it was to resolve this ambiguity or uncertainty, but also the community had many items and a list of many kind of fixes, revisions, modifications to the MGOD, the Mortensen Garrison Overlay District, to kind of clean it up and modernize it. And so that was initiated, and we worked, and the chair here can substantiate that, for many months. I think it even exceeded a year of coming up with a text amendment. Last year, staff called off that process. And they said that process is called off because there's litigation by Stan Lucas, unrelated to this project. Their lawyers are asserting the text amendment process is illegal. We can no longer move forward with it. So now we're stuck. We're required to go get a text amendment to pull a building permit, pull a final map and a building permit on these townhomes in the arterial commercial. And now we no longer have a text amendment to go get. So we need to fix this, or else this project can no longer move forward and our time to record the final map would expire. The other option in there you'll see is a text amendment or a mutually agreed upon reallocation of units. So to refresh your memory on the MGOD planning areas, there's 3 of them. There's residential units in all 3. This gave the authority to go out there and, you know, ask the other 2 developers to bring units to our planning area. But as of now, other developers are not willing to, you know, convey units to us. Stan Lucas has their own project. Santera has been fully entitled. There's no market for these units. So the text amendment is not feasible. Buying or transferring these units is not feasible. So it's just a condition that's virtually impossible. So what we're saying is, let's go ahead and change it, right? Just modify this condition to move this townhome project forward. So the proposal is to say, in accordance with the Martins and Garrison Overlay District, MGOD, the uses permitted within the arterial commercial zoning designation are those identified in the Reno Municipal Code, which is currently in MGOD, which currently has no maximum residential density. The applicant, however, is suggesting that in arterial commercial, we should cap the number of units allowed there at 285. Why 285? That's what was approved on our tentative map. So we have a city council approved tentative map with 285 units. They gave us a process to go do a text amendment. Staff is no longer allowing that text amendment. So we're changing the condition to basically say, let us do the townhomes with 285 units. Second condition, at the city council hearing for the tentative map, there was a motion made and there was a request to put a final condition to try to provide secondary access from this property directly to I-80, directly through NDOT and a piece of property to go into I-80. And you can see this condition number 31, what kind of surface that would be. We explored that option. NDOT said no. Federal Highway Administration said no, that they would not allow a direct connection to I-80. So you can see the map here. There's the arterial commercial up there by the freeway. You can see the top red dash line, the arrow up by the I-80 sign. That's where council said, hey, go explore and see if you can make a second connection there, because we have a connection from Boomtown Garrison Road. See if there would be a second connection there. Knowing in the back of all of our minds that eventually there'd be a secondary access. You can see the red dotted line heading westbound through Santera. So we did our due diligence. That's not a viable option. But in the meantime, this issue is moot because Santera now has their PUD approved, which you can see the dotted red line and the arrow on the east side of the property to give secondary access to this loop. And actually a special use permit for that secondary access was approved by the Planning Commission for that access. So fast forward time, we now have secondary access, it's approved. The condition for this temporary secondary access of trying to connect to I-80 is also an impossibility, no longer needed. And so we would ask that that would be removed. And it's my understanding that the staff report will recommend approval, given the fire marshal has no concerns with removing this, given there is a safe and orderly secondary access now on the books. So in a nutshell, those are our 2 requests to modify these 2 conditions to move this project forward, and specifically the higher density right along I-80 with some townhome project to help with this housing shortage we're in. So that's happy to answer any questions, Madam Chair, and appreciate the time tonight.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Do we want to take public comment first and then bring it back to the board for discussion and questions? Or how would you guys like to start out with questions?
Alex Scott for the record. I would like to start with the members of the board before going to public comment.
Okay. Well, I've got several things, I guess. You guys know me, I apologize. Just several things, I guess, that I would like to point out, and maybe you can lend some clarifications for me, Gordon. But basically, first and foremost, the text amendment process went on for over 2 years, just so that everybody understands, due to the fact that most of our meetings were scheduled for early 2020. As we all know what happened at that point. So it was delayed by several months. We bent over backwards, including city staff, including everybody involved. There were a number of people, I want to say anywhere from almost 20 people, you know, coming and kind of going throughout that process. We got, I thought, some amazing progress done on that text amendment. And tonight is the first time that I've heard that it was scrapped. We have been told, us residents were told, that it was actually in review by the City of Reno legal team and that it was postponed when we didn't know. So this is the first time I've heard that it's just been completely scrapped. That's my first point. The second point is that it states very clearly in this condition number 4 to increase the number of units allowed. Now, just for clarification, so that you all understand, the Mortensen-Garson Overlay District was very specific, and I won't go into all of the details, but I can tell you it was years of us residents being involved with the planning and layout of this project. That was done through Washoe County. Verdi has always been Washoe County in the past. Washoe County and City of Reno having to deal with, how do we fix this? Washoe County has these standards, these zoning codes that don't convert to City of Reno zoning codes. How do we mesh the two? Because City of Reno is annexing properties within this area. So how do we mesh it to make sure that it's not just blow up and it's City of Reno right on top of Washoe County? How do we mesh it? So that's why the MGOD was created, in a nutshell. I mean, I don't want to go into hours of debate and conversation about it, but in a nutshell, that's basically what it was. So MGOD was supposed to be kind of the guideline or starting point of how our development was supposed to transpire in this area. We had an area plan, a neighborhood area plan for Verdi that was supposed to be followed. A lot of things have been lost over 20 years, and a lot of things have changed, as Garrett has mentioned tonight. So this was a project that desperately needed to be done and analyzed. Let's go back to the intent. Let's go back to the ideas. And I apologize, I'm kind of monopolizing here, so I'll try to wrap it up. But basically, to clean up and modernize that text amendment is still crucial. But regardless, the MGOD stated an absolute cap on each of the parcels involved in this project and how many allowable units were allowed on that parcel. What this developer is coming in and saying is they want to go way over that. And I get their point. He's making a great presentation. The bigger issue, the broader view, is that, okay, we allow you to do it. What's stopping Boomtown to move all of their arterial commercial to residential? And then that 3,000 unit housing cap is now 5,000, 6,000, 10,000. There's no end to how many homes we could have in this little area that is already determined can't handle it. We don't have the infrastructure. And I'll stop at that, but I can go on for days about that. I mean, the Garson overpass needs to be improved. We've all discussed it. Anybody that's analyzed it has said it's way outdated. It can't handle this type of traffic. You're going to have school buses and parents driving their kids over this unsafe, not pedestrian friendly overpass to go to school every day with no secondary access. So both of these conditions, I feel, are imperative to the project moving forward. Thank you.
Mac Rossi for the record. In looking at what's the total amount of housing units here, am I only looking at 2 exits to get out of there? Is that correct? One? I got the one on the left. Can you put up that other, the last one, the last screen? I seen 2 red ones. One on the top and one on the left. Is that an exit, or is that just divided for more development?
For the record, so in green is our project. You can see Boomtown Garrison Road. And then if you head westbound, you can see Mountain Road. And then if you, eastbound, you can see Mountain Road. And then heading westbound, you can see the road going through another development. So it's not just through that vacant land. Santera PUD was approved to connect over to the roadway on that side.
So that's 2. Is that right? Am I reading it right?
I would say 3. If you look on there where the pink is, there's an arrow heading east. There's an arrow heading Boomtown.
Oh, way
Garrison
up to the
Road.
right there?
Yeah, and then there's an
Okay.
arrow heading the main secondary access
Okay.
point.
And another thing I just want to ask, and it seems like every time a development comes into our area, they come back later and say, how come the city isn't snow plowing the area? Has anything been done to the city to notify you that they're only going to do certain streets? Or are they already for more capacity for schools, school routes and stuff like that?
It's a good point. I'm not aware of the snow issue, but I can say this was already approved with a tentative map, right? So city council already made the findings in regards to the MGOT, in regards to the zoning, in regards to the master plan. This is mapped for this unit. So that analysis has been done for school, roads, et cetera. It's just whether or not these 2 conditions are still germane.
Okay. Nobody from city staff here, is that correct?
We do have a planner with us online. So is there a question directed at him?
Yeah, just as far as service to that area, that's what I'm concerned about. And this has come up before. It's not something new or that's a surprise.
Hi, Joey Winter from Development Services here. Thanks for the question and thanks for allowing me to be here tonight. What the applicant, Mr. Gordon, stated is correct, is that there's an approved tentative map and it has been analyzed at this point. And then the question that will be in front of Planning Commission and City Council is related to these 2 conditions.
So. Okay, I'm not exactly sure what you said, but I guess you know what you said. So,
I'm sorry, if there was a further question, could you clarify?
as far as for services, that development, as far as I question that many, as far as only 3 exits out of there for that many homes. And the second was a service on the roads, because we've had other developments just in Somerset. All of a sudden they come back screaming that the city is not providing them service, and they want, especially like Del Webb, where there's no school routes at all, but they want to be able to have their roads clean.
Yes, all that services analyzed at the time of tentative map. I was not involved in analyzing this tentative map, so I can't speak to what the results of those were. And there's also the current request is still under review. Staff has not made anything final on that, but that is all looked at through a tentative map. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you.
Just really quickly, if I may, just to clarify on Mac's point here, you're saying that there will be a secondary access down to the Santera Quilisi project, correct?
Correct.
And then you have the line going on to I-80. I had understood you to say that you were told no on that. But you've got it on the map and you're saying that that is a 3rd access.
No, so on the top of with the dotted line there where you can see the 80 sign, correct, that was not allowed by NDOT. That will not
Correct,
be
so
an
that will not
access.
be there.
So there will be the dotted line where it says access to Quilisi Ranch Road. And then if you could move the Zoom video for a second. And then you have, of course, access coming in, 3 different directions to the Boomtown Garrison Road interchange, as well as emergency access. You can see heading eastbound on, I believe it's Mountain Road.
So just to clarify, your condition number 31 is to construct a secondary emergency access, which you guys are asking to not have to do, correct? In layman's terms?
Except that if you look at the original conditions of approval, there's a requirement to do secondary access on the 256th unit.
Yes.
That stays.
Okay.
So that secondary access requirement on the 256th unit that was worked out with fire absolutely stays. This wasn't at the hearing, but as I understand it, it was the very last condition put on. And it was council saying, hey, we'd like you to take a look and go talk to the federal agencies if you can get this direct connection to I-80. And we tried and it didn't work out. However, we're still conditioned on that 256 to have that secondary access.
So last final question, I promise. Are you going to be able to have an NDOT representative at the planning commission to testify to that and say, absolutely not, we're not allowing this?
Yeah, I'll work through our engineering group who had those conversations. Yeah,
That would be great.
yeah, seems
Thank you.
fair.
This is Amy Pennington for the record. I just want to remind the board members and the public that the most effective way to get your comments into the record and into the hands of the planning department and planning commission is to submit the digital form. Not just, I mean, obviously the verbal comments are part of the record, but the submitted forms go with the applications. So please do make sure to submit your comments.
Hey, Scary.
Good evening, Mr. Gordon. Good to see you again. Thank you for being here. I know you don't have to be at the NAB, so I do appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
I
Good
only
to
had
see
one
you.
question at this point. Most of my questions are for the staff because I found this honestly a very complex issue. So much so I reached out to Pam McNeil, whom I believe you know lives in Rudai, and tried to get a historical perspective on it. And it's quite a story over the years. So forgive me. The only question I have at this point is, you seem to be saying that it's like this or nothing, but I'm looking at the new language where it says the Reno Municipal Code, which currently has no maximum residential density, resulting in an unlimited number of residential units. So this seems to be such a big jump from, was it the cap of 3,000? That's what I understood, to unlimited number of residential units. And that's especially true if this becomes a precedent of some kind. So was there any discussion given to fallbacks or options other than increasing the cap? Thank you.
Great question. Always good to see you, Mr. Cecil. Always great questions. Let me see if I can go back here. So again, we're talking about 3 and 4, where there's a tentative map approved for 285 units. Our goal is just to be able to move forward with the final map on those 285 units, not to open up the floodgates with Boomtown, not to open up the floodgates with any other arterial commercial zone land. I think we could craft a condition that says we're allowed 285 units on this arterial commercial. To your point about the cap, I believe that the cap applies to land use designations. If you look here, table 20-40, the cap applies to land use designations that have single family, and if we can go to the overhead. You can see here, this is right from the MGOD. Identifies each planning area and each land use designation within that planning area, and then a unit count for each of those areas. And you add all those up and it's 3,000. But it doesn't cover arterial commercial. There's also a cap on the number of acres of arterial of commercial in MGOD. And you look at, well, what should be allowed in arterial commercial in the MGOD? And you look at the MGOD and it says, you go to Title 18 for the allowed land uses. And so you go to Title 18, and the point was that it says for arterial commercial, you can do, unlimited or with a use permit, multifamily. Now, our point is, we don't want to make an argument about multifamily. We don't want to make an argument about unlimited. The sentence you just read was giving context of what could happen. We're just saying, all we want is our 285 units. And if it's just to say 285 units on land that's tentative mapped, on villages 1 and 2 or 3 and 4, whatever it is, we're happy. We want to do our townhomes. I think council and this community wants that product. That's all we want. So whatever we can do with the chair's input or your input to really be specific in allowing us that right to do what's been approved, but not open up the floodgates, there's no intention to do that whatsoever.
That has not been discussed to this point, trying to find a fallback or something that's more acceptable to the residents.
It has been discussed throughout the stakeholder process, and there's, Madam Chair, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's always been this pushback of, well, you're still subject to the cap. And we say, no, we're not subject to the cap. We're arterial commercial, and we have a tentative map for 285 units. So that's where we were working on this tentative map, this text amendment process. And there was great work done over, I kind of minimized it. My apologies about how long it took and all the input. There was going to be a lot of cleanups in that document. This was just one piece that we wanted of kind of a bigger compromise deal that we were moving toward. And so this is just a request to get our 285 and not to unsettle anything or anybody else.
Okay, I do understand what you're saying, but let me just play something back here, because you didn't directly answer the question that I asked, and that was about precedent. So in this case, this is in Verdi, for example, and you represented other developers somewhere else in the city, completely different
I'm
ward.
actually I'm gonna jump in here because while I do think that it's totally appropriate to maybe write a question or a comment on your comment form about making sure that city council and planners and the planning commission look at precedent. This board doesn't vote on a decision. And so this is more information gathering and putting in your comments. So if there is a concern about precedent, that's not necessarily specific to what's being asked for approval in this project. So let's keep it to this project. And if there's comments about precedent, they can be written in the comment forms for staff to take into consideration.
Understood.
Can I ask that question of the representative of the planning department?
It's not really specific to, well, actually, Joey, if you want to say something, go ahead.
Yeah, Joey Winter from Development Services. I appreciate the question. And I will just echo what Amy says, is that this can be taken into consideration, but staff has not analyzed this project or finished analyzing this project at this time. It's still under review.
Josie, thanks for being here tonight. I appreciate it. Let me just follow up just a little bit. And again, Amy, I'm just trying to understand. In order to make a cogent comment, I need to understand first. So are you aware of any other locations in the city besides Verdi where the city has been asked to increase a cap on residential development in any way?
Yes, I appreciate the question. I am not analyzing this project, and I don't analyze every project in the city. I'm not aware of any off the top of my head sitting here right now, but I can't categorically say it has happened or hasn't happened.
I did speak to Jonathan Shipman yesterday because I thought this was a legal question. And when we had NAP training, he said, call me if you have a question. He wasn't prepared to answer me on that. And he actually referred me back to the Development Services Department. So one request I would have before it gets to Planning Commission is that you do some research to see if there are any comparable requests that have happened with the city before. Maybe there's already a precedent. If not, then I think it's difficult for me, Mr. Gordon, to look at this project in isolation, in a piecemeal way. I understand you're representing a client and you do a great job advocating for them. But in this case, I would need a broader perspective in whether to say whether what you're asking is reasonable or not, and if there are any broader implications. So that's why I'm asking for some
Yeah,
clarification.
and those are great comments to put on your comment form for staff to make sure that they consider and evaluate when they're making their decision.
Okay. And just one final question, Joseph. I am a novice to this. I'm still learning. What is just quickly, why are caps put on residential quantities, and what kind of factors are borne in mind in putting on a cap?
That is an excellent question, and I appreciate the question, and I'm not aware of this specific cap. I'm not the planner assigned to this case, and I would hate to speculate on an answer on that. I will put in the chat right now the planner who is analyzing this. His name is Nathan Gilbert, his direct contact info, so you can follow up directly with him. He will have more specifics on the case, and if you want comments directly to the Development Services Department, that's the best way to get directly to the planner.
So you don't know the answer to that right now.
No, I couldn't give you an answer tonight, unfortunately.
And Amy, that's exactly why I struggle to know how we can be fully prepared to review a development agreement.
Right,
Or
well,
of
and
any
that's
kind.
the purpose of a NAB is for the community to evaluate if this project fits with this community and evaluate the questions about access, like what you were saying about access points and things like that. When it comes to the specifics of the code, definitely I'd recommend putting in questions and like that sort of thing into your comment form. This is not the Planning Commission though, which is where a lot of these things are evaluated at a more granular level as far as code goes. And that's not the purpose of the NAB is for community input as far as, is this something that makes sense in this community?
Thank you. You guys,
Just finally, Carly, take as much time as you need. I don't have any problems. If this is very important to you and Pradai, so you don't have to apologize for taking time up.
thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Again, appreciate being here.
Thanks, Mr. Cecil.
Alex, did you have any questions or comments? Following suit with our past couple hybrid or technically virtual meetings, if you don't mind, I'll go through some of the comments in chat. Just since we do still have you, Garrett, if you don't mind hanging out.
Sure.
And then just in case there's anything that you can answer. And I would love for Joseph to hang out as well, because I'm thinking I haven't read them all, but I'm thinking that he might be able to help with some of the specifics. So I have a comment from Adrian Artris saying that arterial commercial does have a limit on residential units. 100 units by right needs special permission for more, hence the SUP is needed. The comment "there is virtually no limit" is incorrect and deceptive. MGOD does have a limit of 3,000 for dwelling units. Meridian 3 to 6 approval was conditioned on the developer getting more units prior to the final map, or approval is rescinded. So I'm guessing, I don't know if you want to address that or maybe Joseph.
I can give it a shot.
Okay.
My understanding is, this application falls under old zoning code. So she may have been looking at new zoning code, but the old zoning code, my understanding from the prior application, interior commercial was allowed unlimited units. I think the new zoning code, you have a use permit, but I did mention that a second ago. But yeah, there is certainly opportunity to do a ton of units here under old code that we're trying to cap and get our 285.
Gotcha. Okay. Next comment appears to
Madam
also,
Chair, how many comments do we have?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Few,
5 or quite a few?
quite a few.
Is it,
I can count them if you'd like.
for brevity, is it possible that we could ask them to submit their comments through the portal that Amy has asked for?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, let me just kind of peruse here. To be completely honest with you, I think would be my only concern. That's what I was wanting to just peruse. So if you just give me 1 second, I'll kind of go through and see.
Madam Chair, I could clarify one more time. My esteemed colleague here, Michael Cabrera, he's an up and coming land use lawyer, so hopefully you see him a lot more than me. We have a use permit for villages 3 and 4 for the density. That was bundled with the application, which would allow anything over 100 units. So we could have unlimited under the use permit, but we're just trying to cap that at 285. So we went through that process with the entitlement. I'm not sure if you remember that. I had forgotten it. So thanks, Michael.
Looks like the rest just has to do with access and that condition number 31. I think they're good comments personally, and I wouldn't mind sharing them, but if we want to
May I introduce
maybe
a motion?
Sure.
May I have a motion to introduce these comments and as part of our minutes for the meeting, stating that we received these comments from the public?
The comments cannot necessarily be directly put into the minutes, but they will be, all the comments on the chat will be pulled and put into the public record that is uploaded for the public to access. And I would recommend everyone online and in the room to submit their comments on the public comment, on the comment form that is associated with the development project. I will put the link in the chat. That way your comments are directly associated with this case.
Madam Chair, one more clarification just for the
Sure.
record. I think Mr. Cecil, everyone wants as much information as possible. I don't think I pointed out well enough that the condition for access was temporary access. Temporary access until that access heading westbound was approved. Because when this all went through years ago, we didn't know if Santera was going to go first or we were going to go first. So to the point about having 2 access points, you can see the condition we're asking for removal was a temporary connection until the permanent one is in place. The permanent one now has been approved in the PUD and there's a use permit for it. So the temporary isn't needed. The secondary access at the 256th unit is still in there. So
Okay.
sorry if that wasn't clear, but the temporary I think is important.
Thank you. Okay, we do have some hands up for comments.
I would advocate for the same thing that we asked of the others to put in the chat. That way it's reflected, and then give them the opportunity to fill out the form.
My only issue with this is that the last 2 or 3 meetings have been done virtually, and we have read all the comments. We've addressed all of the questions. We've kind of had a format, and I would hate to just say, oh, well, with this project, we're not going to do that.
Gary Cecil for the record. This is a very important issue to the people in Verdi. I'd like to hear from them.
Okay.
I would just, I would say the comments aren't for us so much as they are for staff and making their decisions. And so as long as the comments can get to staff, I think that they can be appreciated.
I'm new to this, so I'm learning. I like to hear the perspective directly from the residents myself before I write my comment to the planning commission or whatever. So, and I know from talking to a few of them there that this is something very, very close to their heart. And this may be the only real opportunity that they, in a more casual way, that they can make a public comment. And I'm inclined to support that with all respectfully. I disagree. I think they need to talk.
I would actually agree with Gary on this one. This has been going on for over 20 years. So I think that, you know, if we're giving the public a chance of a public meeting, they should have their rights to speak. But regardless, even if we don't allow it, they've got public comment here in just a moment where they can raise their hand and still say the comments. So I'm just not trying to ruffle any feathers. I'm just saying that the last couple meetings have been run a specific way. I would hate to cut them out because they're not here in person. So
You can recognize them to speak.
wonderful. So I have Adrian Argyris, and I believe that you're going to have to unmute her.
Adrian, can you hear us? Unmute yourself and speak.
Addie, it looks like your mute button is on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, Addie Argyris. Garrett Gordon made reference to table 180848, residential development potential by planning area. He says he went in and added up all the units and they come out to 3,000. Yes, they do. However, if you go back to the administration amendments, number one, total amount of development resulting from any change in density shall not exceed 3,000 dwelling units. They changed, this is a density change. So it still cannot exceed 3,000 units. Now, I wrote all my other comments down, so I will just leave it here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just one last little comment that I'll make just from reading through some of these comments. One of the comments to Gary's question was that the project is still under review by city staff, but that's not necessarily true. It has already been approved. It's been approved with conditions of approval. What's before us tonight is changing those conditions of approval. So just that clarification. And again, I think I'll leave it to you guys to go through the rest of the comments. But if we could, there is a request to have
Another
the
hand raised.
form. Okay, I'll get to that in 2 seconds. Could we have, you're already on it. You got the link for the project review form for everybody. Great. Okay, and then we have Art Rangel.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, actually, Art Rangel for the record. I don't live in Verdi, but I know that area quite well. Just a point of clarification. In the chat, it said the Deer Mountain Road takes you right back to the start, which I think is accurate. I've been out there before. Just a point of clarification. Is that true or not?
It is true. Do you want to address it at all? Yeah, so basically from Village 1 and 2, my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, but my understanding is from Villages 1 and 2, their emergency exit will come out onto Deer Mountain Road, which is basically just a loop back onto the main exit that all of the residents of Belli Ranch will then also need to use. So in the comments, you'll see there was some concerns about evacuation. You're talking about all of these residents and all of Belli Ranch residents with their livestock having to exit onto Garson interchange, if you will, to try to evacuate the area. They would not have access to the secondary access, or I mean, potentially they could, but the secondary access would be quite far off. So there are concerns as far as the access goes listed in the comments there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Okay, it looks like we do have Addie's hand up again. Addie will give you 3 minutes to talk.
Sorry, I forgot to take it down.
Okay, no worries.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, is that Deanne?
That's Deanne Radcliffe. Hello. So sorry. We were trying to obviously share links and it was such a crazy thing to get in. So there's 2 Addies, but really I'm Deanne Radcliffe, resident of Verdi. Thank you so much for serving, guys, and for hanging out at the meeting. I have the privilege of having worked on the Mortensen Garson project back when I was on the Citizens Advisory Board. And I just want to reinforce the 3,000 cap. That was the product of obviously a legal document, a settlement agreement, where all the property owners agreed to things. Of course, at that time, Mr. Gordon's client did not own the property. So that 3,000 is etched in stone. I was also privileged to be part of the text amendment process. I did definitely relay that information to Mr. Gordon. So I just want to reinforce that. The other thing that was sort of interesting on that map was there was a firehouse denoted, and there is plans for a firehouse sometime in the future. I don't think there is a firm date whatsoever on that. There's a ton of discussion about funding, but really we're talking about 2,200 people evacuating from 2 different points. So I think that's a key point, but the 3,000 cap is definitely a non-negotiable. Thank you so much for your time.
You, Deanne. Okay, I don't see any more hands. Do we have any more discussion amongst the board? Seeing none, I will just go ahead and echo Amy in that it's really quite crucial that if you have comments or concerns, to list them in the project review form so that that can be notated by the Planning Commission. Do we have a date? I apologize. I didn't even look, you guys, to see if a date has been set for this to go before planning. The 20th of April. So next week, next Wednesday. So if I'm sure they are going to be needing those forms just as soon as possible. So if you're able to do those electronically, the link is in the comments, thanks to Amy. And I would encourage everyone to fill those out here within the next day.
Yeah, just a comment to the people listening. Show up at the meeting as well. Very important.
And Madam Chair, just to, I came before you a couple months ago. As we worked through these conditions, there was a condition where we agreed to rezone some property from industrial to open space.
Yes,
And that will also be on the agenda on the Planning Commission.
great.
So we have this, we're kind of trying to clean up 3 conditions, satisfy that commitment to go from industrial to open space, and then clean up these other 2. So
Gotcha.
Just so you know.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item C. Have a wonderful night, you guys. Thank you for coming. Item C, which is board and commissioner committee member reports and announcements, limited to items that do not appear elsewhere on the agenda, but no action can be taken. Okay, I see none. Next item is future agenda items. Mac Rossi.
Mac Rossi for the record. I have several. One, the state attorney general had secured quite a bit of funds for the opiate pill situation, excuse me. And I'd like to see if we can get a report on it exactly whether it's going to be allocated for county, city, or just up for random whenever they feel that it's needed. That's item 1. I'd like to put on for addressing the rape kits, please. And then one more that I don't want to drag it out, but on the county has come up with a new concept for reviewing developments and where they do it on a neighborhood basis and where nothing can be slid by until after it goes through the neighborhood. Am I saying that right?
That is correct.
Okay, and I would like to have the assistant county manager have a presentation here on this. And I think that's something the city should really consider because when you hear the program, it is so much down to earth and for us to be able to get a better idea what's going on. And that's my 3. Thank you.
Well, just to piggyback off of that just a little bit too, I think the purpose behind that is it's in the code, city, county, state. I don't know. Please don't. Maybe there's a lawyer here that can help out, but it's a requirement that a public review process happen. And that has slipped through the cracks in the last couple of years, both county and city. County has recognized that and put in place that no development can move forward, period, end of story, until they prove that they have met that public review process. All the funds are on them. The cost is on them. They have to do all the notifications, prove all of that to the county. I agree. It's a slick system. Okay,
Just one item. Tomorrow, the city council, I believe, is voting on the e-scooters that
Okay.
are going to be deployed pretty quickly downtown and in the Midtown area. I'm very interested in a presentation about that, primarily from the standpoint of safety. That was the issue that Vice Mayor Jordan raised initially to push that franchisee back to come back with that. And also, if the person on staff who looked at the report that they gave could also come and tell us something about that too. I'm still concerned about safety.
Okay,
Thank you.
Know how to fumble through this, but you guys know I'll try. Who is it that does the business district downtown and kind of, Yeah.
The downtown Reno partnership.
that's the one?
Yeah.
And they also handle all the ambassadors, correct?
Mhm.
I wouldn't mind, it doesn't have to be next meeting, it doesn't have to be like very soon, but I would love to invite him back to just give us some updates. I always find his presentations incredibly enlightening and informational on downtown things.
That has been addressed probably, Mac Rossi for the record, that was addressed as a feature of the
Next item, excuse me, unless anybody has any other future agenda items, is public comment. And I think we have one person that wanted to speak.
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. And this is for the folks online too. This is the last chance for public comment on any action item or general public comment, and is limited to no more than 3 minutes for each commentator.
Could I have the overhead, please?
While you're getting prepared, if I may just answer a question in the chat. The project number for Meridian 120 South is LDC 21-00038. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm here tonight to introduce myself. My name is Wendy Leonard. I'm running for Washoe County Commission District 5. As Ward 5 overlaps a lot of our district, I wanted to just tell you a little bit about myself. I've spent 21 and a half years in law enforcement. I retired as a lieutenant with the Washoe County Sheriff's Office. During my time in law enforcement, I did a lot of amazing assignments. Some of those included working as a canine handler, a weaponless defense instructor, a firearms instructor, and when I finished my career, I was a tactical team commander. After my retirement, I spent 5 years working with the County Employees Association and the county to ensure that we could identify issues on both sides and seek to address those issues. Over the past year, I've worked on the North Valley's Community Advisory Board, so I understand what all of you are going through up here today. During my time on the CAB, I worked to ensure that our citizens' voices are heard, and thank you, Carly, for fighting to ensure that that happens. I think that that's very important. While I was working on the CAB, I worked with the citizens and developers alike to ensure that things like public land access were maintained during developments, environmental concerns and safety issues were addressed. Over the past 7 years, the county has suffered in District 5 from a commissioner who lacks objectivity and has allowed her emotions to become involved to a degree that it has blocked the county being able to get work done. Her emotions have recently led to a large amount of divisiveness with our citizens as well as with our Washoe County Commission, and I want to help change that. I'm here to ensure that I listen to stakeholders, I will work objectively, and I will seek solutions. You can find information on my platform on my website at electwendyleonard.com. My last name is spelled Leonard. You can find me on Facebook at Elect Wendy Leonard. And if you have any questions, I'm also available by phone at 453-6242. I do have some flyers available. And for those of you at home, you can reach out through the website or reach me by phone. I wanted to just let all of you on the board know that I appreciate what you do, because without you, the citizens' voices are not heard at the county. For the rest of you who are here and who participate in this process, whether you're on the board or whether you're just a voice for your communities, keep it up because we need you. Thank you very much.
Great messages. Thank
Wendy,
you.
if you'd be so kind to leave some, Mac Rossi for the record, leave some of your flyers over on the side there. so we
I'm
can pick
certainly
up on
happy
our
to
way
do
on.
that, Mac. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You're so
May I
good
just-
at announcing yourself.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes, please, Gary.
Thank you, first of all, for all the service and all the things you do, and the police do appreciate that. I honestly try to keep an open mind, but how would you have voted in Jean Herman's recent election suggestion proposal?
This is not
I don't think you can do that.
agendized. Sorry, we cannot
Can't
do
do
this.
that?
Gary, I'm happy to speak with you after the meeting.
Sounds
There
good.
you
Thank
go.
you.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay,
Wow.
we made it to item F.
Mac Rossi for the record, I'd like to have this meeting adjourned.
Alex Goff, second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none.
Thank you. Oh, gosh. Thank you, everyone. We're done. Have a good night.